October is Pride Month in South Africa, and different celebrations have been taking place around the country. And there are growing calls for an end to discrimination against the LGBTQI+ community. Next week, hundreds of people will be attending the Johannesburg Pride event taking place at the Wanderers Stadium. And festival organizers say the event will offer an explosion of color, love and togetherness. To discuss this further, I'm joined by Kaye Ally, human rights activist and founder of Pride of Africa. Kaye, good afternoon to you and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Cindy.
And as we're saying off air, so Pride was started in 1990 already, but only came to prominence post-democracy, I guess.
Post-democracy, and I think the last 10, 12 years, it's become more inclusive. We've seen a lot of people of color come out, and the numbers growing. I think we're expecting a few thousand.
Yeah.
We are expecting quite a full capacity at Wanderers on the 28th of October. It's our first real massive Pride engagement since COVID, and we ended before COVID 2019 on a high. I think we attracted throughout the day almost 40,000 people, so it's definitely an event that has grown. I mean, it does resonate with everyone.
Yeah, and there's been so many milestones over the years, not only legislatively, but I think with the attitudes of people as well, in acceptance of our differences and sexual orientation.
100%, 100%. I think that our constitution helps. It does make us, in a sense, role models for Africa. I mean, there's still 33 out of 54 countries in Africa that have very discriminatory LGBTQ+ laws. But South Africa is definitely constitutionally light years ahead. And society. Look, there is that. We have got a lot. We have been embraced by a lot. But I think there's still challenges and there's still work that needs to be done for a full and total equal society.
Yeah. And what are those challenges? And maybe in the sense of creating a safe environment, you know, for those that may want to come out, be it family structures, giving them support. What are some of the challenges that you still face?
Look, I think by and large, if you look at rural South Africa and Africa in a sense, it's still seen as un-African to be gay. So when you look at it from that perspective, you have to address cultural, traditional, and just plain mindsets of people that need to be changed. And that can only happen via education. You know, we need to really educate that people are naturally born this way.
Yeah. And how far does that education reach? Is it something that should be brought about in community meetings, or is it something that should be in the formal education system? And I'll tell you why I ask this, because there are questions around heterosexual parents who may feel uncomfortable if a subject around you know, homosexuality, being gay, is necessarily encouraged in the formal schooling system.
I think the education needs to be more around tolerance, acceptance, equality, and treating people for who they are, not looking at sexual identity as the foundation of how we accept or incorporate people into our lives.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we are all human, and our sexuality is more personal than it is for society.
And people have the right to identify as they choose.
100%. Look, the education system, the sensitization of not just the education system or the schooling system, but the sensitization of society needs to happen at a far wider level than we're unfunded. So it has to happen at a far, far greater level than an organization like a Pride organization. We do need to see our government doing a little bit of work, not just the schooling system, but they need to sensitize staff in the Department of Home Affairs, in the South African Police Service, in the Departments of Justice, or in Department of Education for that matter. You find a lot of people that are victims, that are marginalized. If they go to the South African Police Service, they're not being taken seriously. Their reports are not being taken seriously. The cases are not being managed properly. And that stems from the fact that there is that mentality again, that being gay is un-African, and it's just something that someone is facing or a challenge.
Yeah, but what level of protection is there then? If you're saying there's still discrimination, and as an advocacy group that is unfunded, you only have so many or so much that you can do, or limited resources. So if you feel that the system fails you, where do people turn to then?
So there are quite a number of Section 21 organizations that are funded by our government, funded by international donors. And there are roundtables and task teams that have been established to help work with government, but the progress is very slow.
But the milestones, though, on the flip side, is let's look at the amendment to the marriages
Yes.
bill, and maybe you can highlight a number of others as well.
So if you look at it, for example, there is the amendment to the Marriage Act, which is a Civil Union Act. But when you go to Home Affairs, some of the staff don't want to actually perform the civil union ceremony. So there are those type of challenges. You look at the inclusivity in terms of the Department of Labor. But in the practice of the daily lives of the workplace, there's always that. And that comes to educating individuals.
Can a public servant or officer recuse themselves, be it because of their religious reasons or beliefs, if they don't want to officiate a gay union, so to speak?
We've had that issue with the Department of Home Affairs staff, and that has been addressed. But you still get individuals that, would put their personal beliefs ahead of their responsibility or their job responsibility or duty, so to speak. But it's an ongoing process, and I think that we have made some headway into those tranches of change.
And in terms of the violence that is meted against the LGBTQI plus community, has that been at least reduced? Is there more police visibility? Is there more protection?
So we found COVID has thrusted people into very harsh situations in some cases. The hard lockdown was very difficult for a large number of the LGBTQ plus communities, having to be, in closed off proximity to family members that reject them, or a lot of them came out during the COVID period because you're spending that much of time in so many company. We also saw the numbers of hate crimes and gay murders escalate beyond during the time of COVID. So that there was some real harsh truth that came out with such stringent lockdowns. And I think we as a community are coming together. We want to use this Pride opportunity, to promote that love and unity and togetherness. And I mean, it's the 34th Pride in Africa, not just Johannesburg. And Johannesburg Pride is seen as the pride of Africa because it's been so long-standing, creating visibility and awareness, not just for us as a community in Joburg, but for us as a community in Africa. And that's really the biggest platform we have.
Yeah, so what can we expect next week? And maybe also, because we take for granted the work that goes on behind the scenes, the volunteers that may come forward, community members that are assisting in your cause. What can we expect next week?
So, yes, thank you for that. We are a team completely of volunteers. We all have other professional jobs, but next week is going to be amazing. The logistics have been signed off, and we're looking at a build-up event that starts at 10 a.m. at the Wanderers Cricket Stadium, and we're going to take to the streets and march. It's our walk of liberation. We want to dedicate this in solidarity to Uganda, with all the laws that have been passed in Uganda that's anti-LGBT, and we're hoping to have a massive turnout. When we come back from that, we want to enter into a celebration of love.
And love conquers all, as the saying goes. Just your influence in terms of other sovereign independent states, Uganda you mentioned, in having your voice heard there. What are the bilateral, if there's any kind of negotiations or talks with that regard?
When you look at not just the ruling party, but all political parties have quite big LGBT diversity groups. We have been engaging with a number of them to say that from a political perspective, they need to start engaging not just with Uganda, but at an AU level to start enforcing changes in Africa.
Yeah, and I just quickly want to come back to the religious aspect. I just recall especially where in a Christian framework, where the religion, can it coexist with modern legislation and religion? Because I think those two tend to be at loggerheads, or there's conflict in how...
There is and there isn't. We've seen quite a lot of ministries come forward in support of us as a Pride organization, which I think is phenomenal. I think when you look at, I come from a Muslim background, so when you look at from an Islamic perspective, there's quite a lot of work being done in a progressive Islamic mosque set up in Cape Town, where you've got your religious leaders that are also coming out from the community. And I think from that perspective, there is a little bit of acceptance, not across all religious sectors or sects, but there's components of it that are accepting.
We're making progress. And let love prevail. Thank you so much. Kaye, really, really appreciate it. That's Kaye Ally. She is a human rights activist and founder of Pride of Africa. The event takes place next week at the Wanderers Cricket Stadium.